Hello, how are we doing today, folks? Welcome back to Writer's Block. Do I have? I do. Okay. Um, Welcome back. This is Nathan. Nathan, please introduce yourself.
God, I haven't guested on someone's stream in so long, and I literally forgot that I had to introduce myself. I thought I was just gonna be like, "Yeah, I'm Nathan," and we just do a thing, right? Yeah, that's totally good.
Yeah, that's it.
Hi, I'm Nathan. I do all kinds of things in the world. Sorry, including live next to a bunch of construction equipment. In case you can hear that, I suppose.
Not at
But
all, actually.
I do a lot of tabletop stuff. I most recently released a new game. Game designer. I do lots of guest stuff. I do lots of writing and blogging, but mostly I do stuff over at the Reckless Attack podcast, which is an actual play podcast with lots of frogs and friendship and high drama and kind of crazy world building-y things apropos of where we are, as well as we do monthly interview episodes of Reckless Talk. That's me.
Heck yeah, we are very glad to have you back, Nathan. On previous episodes, I think we've had you on for. Has it been 2 or 3 now?
It's at least 2.
Yeah.
This
'Cause I
is
remember
either the 3rd or 4th. I don't remember which.
I definitely remember the most recent, which was the bridge nation we built on that just kind of like had a stranglehold on the
I
river.
forgot about that.
Yeah, I have like flashbulb memories of moments we had with guests. So,
Well, I'm excited to make some new memories.
that's what we're all about. So, well, on that note, I wanted to say that Nathan's links are down below. Nathan's link to Blue Sky is down below, and so is Reckless Attack. So please go follow them if you aren't already, and check out Nathan's new game. I'm gonna be honest. I'm a bad boy. I did not know about that, so I'm going to check that out right after the stream.
It's very brand new. I released it like a week ago or something like that. And I did no preparatory promotion. I did everything wrong. That I knew that I was doing it wrong. One of those where it's like, well, if anyone knows the importance of screaming constantly on the internet ahead of time, during, and after, it's me. And I did none of it. And so it makes total sense that you wouldn't know. But it is a good game.
God, Nathan, you're coming for my wig so hard right now. I don't like
it.
Yeah,
I entirely agree.
I know how it is. I understand.
To those of you folks who are out there, the toughest part about being a TTRPG creator, it ain't writing the games, it ain't running them, it's not even getting your friends together, though. That is a bag of cats. Nah, it's talking about it endlessly on promos. God, that's the worst.
Yeah. I mean, mostly for me, it was very much like a project of I just want to. I've never written a game before, or at least I've never finished a game before. I've written bits of many other games and short stories and blah, blah, blah. And this one was one where I was just like, nope, I'm not getting held up. I am setting a deadline, and I was part of a game jam, so I'm just going, and I don't give a shit. It's fine. I don't need to promote it. It'll just exist, and that will be an end to itself. So it goes.
I feel that. God, yeah, no, I feel that on the starting something and then
Sorry
never
that I
finishing
brought the
it.
mood down.
No, it's a relatable thing. It's not even a mood down type thing, Like
right.
It's
bringing the mood down by holding a mirror up to all of us and our souls. Yeah, that's what I meant.
No, that's okay. All right, so unrelated. The new theme of the show. What is your greatest fear, Nathan?
Boy, it's easy though. We can roll with that. It's only one greatest fear, or can we do like a top 3 to 5, or
we could? Yeah, you could give me your top 5.
Oh, it's rejection for sure. Rejection, and then maybe kind of like hand in hand is like failure, but that's just they're each different types of each other, So
yeah, Baskin-Robbins flavors. Yeah.
Again, I also just had therapy yesterday, so it's all real fresh for me. So.
Oh, love it.
No better way to have it other than fresh, I always say.
Oh my God.
You're there
Like we-
thinking about your last therapy appointment, or you're getting ready to think about your next therapy appointment. That's me at least.
Well, as we say in the food industry, go outside, have a cigarette, or go scream in the walk-in. That's all the therapy we'll get. No, that's not true. Therapy's good. That aside, Nathan, let's go ahead and start with your first word.
My first word, God, I'm just immediately, I'm so excited.
Oh, me too.
Let's start with your first word. I chose a weird word for my first one. Worm.
How am I spelling this version of worm?
The insect with an O.
I figured I'd double check.
Yeah,
Not
absolutely,
worm.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Worm.
I
Worm.
love it.
So, what is there anything that made you think of worm, or did you just?
Actually, yes. So as I promise I'm not doing this to continue to remind people that I released a game available for purchase right now over on itch.io. But you know, I read a ton of different games, you know, kind of just to get my brain moving in kind of a game design fashion. And one of the ones that I read that really stuck with me, I'm going to make sure I say the name. Say the name correctly. Is We Are But Worms, which is a one-word RPG. I'm not gonna say anything more about it. But I had it in one of the bundles that I had. It's a weird little thing, and it just like keeps coming up into my brain in ways that is very lovely. And so I decided to go with worm, and because like worm is just weird, you know, where it's like we could do you can do a lot of different stuff with it. It can be a verb, it can be a noun. It is a little gross, but not necessarily. And it's just an interesting place to start.
I've always I talk to Omni a lot after streams, even like if it's just the two of us. No, like Omni and I just fucking hate each other outside of the stream. We're just like, all right, bye. See you next time, dickhead.
You can't even pretend that, Red. Come on.
It was really uncomfortable before
The
the stream.
bromance is so obvious. Come on.
It was really rough. I had to take a couple breaks, you know, just get off mic, get off camera, get myself.
That's why you had to go to therapy.
Myself.
That's why you had to go to therapy.
It's nice.
Shame
It's
on
nice going into your weekly appointment being like, "Oh, I'm going to talk about this in a couple days." Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, we are
It's
basically
the horrible
Sopranos.
things you said to each other before stream.
Well, you know, you hurt the ones you love the most. Oh God. All right.
Derek said
Worm.
you wouldn't believe the amount of wrangling I had to do back in the day for Covet, like a couple of rock stars, these two.
Again, no, I can't believe that at all.
No, never. Of course. I totally am not sitting on two campaigns that both died entirely because of wrangling people.
That can't be true. Ironically, I wasn't involved in the problem.
No, you weren't in neither. You were
Wasn't involved in the problem. Is a razor perfect, precise way of putting it.
It's a way of like avoiding all guilt, either within or outside. I think that's good. Also, I don't worm. I just love like grubby words. Like that's a grubby word to
right?
me.
Yeah.
It's a good
nasty.
one. It's a great one.
Oh man. Okay. Omni, you better follow up on this, or I'm gonna be disappointed.
Oh God.
No
How do I
pressure.
follow up with worm? How do I follow up with worm? All right.
Armageddon.
So
Sorry, but
you're right. You're right. All
Look at
right.
the worms.
So the word I'm gonna go with is bind. B-I-N-D.
I don't know. We're doing the 4-letter word thing today. Jesus, I should have.
Now you have to pick the next one. You could only switch 2 of the letters around, and
Oh God. Writer's block expert mode? Eventually? Like
I'm far from a fucking expert. I'm doing it. Like, man,
you are an expert in creating writer's block.
that's true.
yes.
The show.
That's true. As far as I was thinking, honestly, does what it says on the tin. For me, it's kind of that like what connects things, right? Like binding is always like just wrapping something up and preventing it from moving. Binding also going to be tying something to something else. It's a form of connection. It's a form of caging. So I think it can work either way, and I'm interested to see what you guys do with it.
See, when I think of bind, I think of BDSM. Uh,
And isn't that the beauty of the prompt? Is that it can mean so much to different people.
Absolutely. This content is not made for children.
Not anymore.
Yeah, no, definitely not. We are at least past the 17-minute mark, so we can in fact drop F-bombs, and it shouldn't impact us too much.
Oh hell yeah. My first word, man, I don't want to like break up the four-letter prompts, but
You absolutely can. It is inexpressively not important. I say
Right.
this as the guest on your show, as if I can dictate what is valuable and not valuable as part of the experience, but you won't be
No,
letting me down, I guess. And I know that weighs on you regularly. Is will Nathan be disappointed in this choice?
you're right. In my last therapy session, I was actually talking. I was talking about.
WWND, what would Nathan do?
Yep, and
What
now
would
I'll
Nathan
talk
do,
about
yeah.
that in my next therapy session, and the beautiful circle will keep rolling.
Yeah, big therapy is like taking more money
Yeah.
from us.
Oh God.
All right. Speaking of getting aid, my first word is sucker, rather. Excuse me.
Ooh.
Ooh, interesting.
I will read the
good one.
Merriam-Webster definition of suckle. Assistance and support in times of hardship and distress.
Yeah.
So, like many of my other words lately, I've been reading the Dark Tower series. So it's a very good series. A little bit dated in some places, but hey, it's Stephen King we're talking about. He does
It's gonna
some of
happen.
the. He does a little bit of her breast bounce boobly type trope, but
Yep.
it's not.
Yeah.
It's not that bad. It's not like Philip K. Dick levels of like just straight up misogynistic. Stephen King's just
Fabio's not on the cover of his books.
Yeah.
That's the takeaway I'm hearing.
Stephen King's just
Okay.
very horny, is what I've come to find, which is fine, I guess.
So sucker.
Yeah. So
Anyway, sucker.
Sucker comes from it was something exchanged between Roland and his quartet, if anybody is familiar with Dark Tower at all. It's basically his posse. He's like, we provide succor for those in need. Like that's our whole job. I was like, oh, that's cool. I like that word a lot. I haven't heard it
Good word.
since I'm trying to remember the first time I heard it. It was probably in some fantasy game when I was a teenager, but just brought me back. So yeah, sucker.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I never thought it was pronounced like that. I always thought it was pronounced Sakor because I never looked it up.
I thought it
And
was
now that I
sucker
hear
when
it
I first saw it.
Right? Hearing it said suck, and I looked it up, and I was like, no, that is apparently the proper American English pronunciation. English is a soup, I tell you.
This language is made by bad people. It is just a bastardization of like 7 or 8 different European languages.
It's
so
8 languages in a trench coat. We get it. Like, it is what it is.
it's a beautiful
Um,
thing. Sorry, I thought Minecraft music started playing for a minute, and I was about to freak out. Be like, "Oh God, we're gonna get muted." Jesus.
Nathan, what's your next word? Because that is such a cool word, man. I don't even know how to react to it. I love that word. I'm glad to see it return.
Thank you.
I can't. I have a couple good words, and it's just a question of how much gnarlier do we want to make things?
As gnarly as you like. We were talking
Well,
about.
right, exactly.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't care. I like to let the guests take the reins. You know.
Yeah, pretty much.
All right,
No
I'm
pressure.
gonna do it. We'll see what happens. Gnaw.
Mm.
GNAW.
That's what worms do on dirt.
I was gonna say it could go a lot of ways. You could gnaw
See-
on something delicious for your sucker, whatever.
Damn. Worms gnaw on the earth that binds them for their secure. I guess. God, I don't know.
Solved it. We built the world. Way to go,
Yeah.
guys.
Yeah. All right. End of the episode. I'll see you next time. We're gonna have Nathan on again just to give us another shot.
Thank you for joining us on Worm War.
Worm War.
That is
World
that
War
is
Worm.
such- World War Worm. No, no, no. We don't need that. No.
Here we go again.
No one needs
I-
it, but sometimes you get it.
I want it.
I love that word, by the way, Nathan, because there's just something about the word gnaw that's so primal in it.
Mhm.
Like it's a very specific kind of eating. Like it's not neat and it's no, that's chewing on the bone. That's sort of like, oh, you're even past the point of there's actually like enjoying the food. You're just forcing it down. I love that.
Well, when I think of gnaw, I don't know why. I know exactly why. It immediately makes me think of Skaven, like just like giant teeth, like
Yeah.
carving away at something. There's also Marrow Gnar from Magic, of course. I think of rats. Thinking of a worm
Mm-hmm.
gnawing at dirt is got to be one of the stupidest fucking thoughts that's ever passed through my brain.
It's not as evocative as I feel like either of those words would be on their own. You somehow made it less interesting, but you know, it's valid.
Look, I was working with four words here. Okay, four words. It's a miracle we stapled it together.
Those words really don't have anything to do with each other. It's just the idea of like
No.
4-letter words, so like there's a pattern there. But gnawing always makes me think of rodents and
Mhm.
worm,
Mhm.
But no, I really like gnaw. Like Omni said,
It's
it's primal.
Yeah, it's evocative. Oh boy, I'm gonna roll my die again here. I actually have 5 words every time, and I just
Ooh,
randomize which ones I take,
Overachiever. Ugh.
so I don't have to go insane. Red.
Ugh.
I can't look. You're asking me to make decisions, and that's a bad idea.
That's the whole fucking
That's
show.
the worst.
Exactly. I'm gonna. I choose the word neophyte. So
That's a
Ooh.
great word. What the hell?
I'm gonna need to Google that.
Yeah,
think I spelled
neophyte's a
that
fun one. Yes, you got that right.
I'm a genius.
Yeah, so neophyte, a person who is new to a subject, skill, or belief. Also a new convert to a religion. Also a novice in a religious order or newly ordained priest. Basically, it's just a way of saying beginner.
Mhm. Very cool.
Yeah, it's a
Good
term
word.
I've heard a lot. Again, my tabletop dorky like self over here with tabletop war games. And when you play enough war games, the word comes up over and over again because you can only say initiate or beginner or like grunt so many times. And the word neophyte gives like the term for it, the very low trained conscript, a lot more weight and a lot more like pleasantness to it. And every time I see that word, I'm like, it's so cool. I got to use it somewhere.
And
There.
I'm not gonna lie, the fact that it has the letter Y in it, pretty cool.
Right?
Like,
I
Yeah,
love
that's
just
not a
looks-
common thing.
It looks kind of cool. I'm not gonna lie, and that's like the most basic thing I could possibly enjoy about it. But I do kind of enjoy it, so it goes.
Yeah. No, agreed. Agreed.
It's very fantastic.
All those words where they could have used an I, but they're like, no, we're using a Y because to English. So yeah, there we go. Neophyte. Red. You're up, buddy.
I'm so glad I can mute my mic. I sneezed so loud that it cracked the heavens. Rest in peace, my roommate. Let's see here. Oh my god, if I'm not careful about this, I'm gonna sound like an idiot.
That's always the worst. Is midstream being like, I think I'm about to fuck up. I think I am. I think I am about to do something wrong or bad, which again goes back to failure, rejection, etc.
Which, by the way, every time no one else is going to notice ever until we point it out. Usually,
No. Yeah, most people are usually just kind of happy to chill out and listen to us talk. They're not really like looking at what I'm typing out, so that's fine. I could be typing the most obscene things and nobody would see it for like a good 10 minutes. Propitious is my word. Propitious is giving or indicating a good chance of success, but archaic version is favorably disposed towards someone. So, and that could be in many different manners. That could be in a romantic or friendly manner. It could be in like a coworker sort of type way. But I particularly like both definitions of the word. The archaic one is interesting because it sort of has a sense of camaraderie built into it. But the idea of like, oh, this thing is it's an adjective. So it's, oh, this certain relationship I have is propitious. This thing we have carrying out is propitious. So I'm thinking, what is something that a good chance of happening? I'm sorry, that is bad English. What is something in this world that has a good chance of happening, and how can we subvert expectations? It's the classic writing trope: make a rule and then immediately break it. So I think propitious follows those lines. So like, oh, we have a chance. We have a great chance of success. This is great. We can do this. And then subvert expectations and be like, here's the 9% chance you didn't account for that failure. So, yeah.
I love that, actually. Red, lately you have this knack for pulling words out of your hat that I didn't know existed, but makes sense that they exist. I love it.
Take that, Morgan. Try me.
In the distance, Souls rolls. Huh, someone must have said my name.
My ears are hot. Somebody's talking about me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've been doing a lot of reading lately too, so that's been helping. I read about by probably several hours a night, 5 times a week. So
hell yeah.
Audiobooks, but that's still reading.
Mm-hmm.
It is.
Anybody that tells you otherwise, bogus. Okay. Bogus is a great word. All right, Nathan.
Yeah,
so
I'm going to change one of my words to bogus.
Okay.
Next word, bogus. We did it.
Welcome to Worm Bogus.
Oh, God.
Your final words,
Sounds like
sir.
Yes.
Pressure's on. If you mess this one up, sets the tone for the rest of the stream.
Correct.
This is the last thing everyone's going to remember you by.
And maybe that's the goal.
Yeah, okay, that's fair.
We joked ahead of time that I came on. I agreed to return to the show so that I could be forever banned from it. And this is where the moment where it happens.
The return to writer's block.
The issue is I just have so many words that I like in my list. I'm going to. Okay, I'm gonna choose this word, plow, Plough.
Oh.
Oh.
Interessante.
That's interesting. Yeah. I have not seen it spelled like that before. That's very interesting.
Yeah, I think it's I don't know if the GH one is like a regional or UK or whatever version of it. But I just like it that way. And especially in terms of more actually airing more on towards more specificity of what it is, as opposed to kind of the usual choice, which I like, is like, well, let's find a word you can use 18 different ways. Whereas this one's like, nope, OGH, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Fair. And apparently they're both viable spellings. Like the PLOW and POUGH, apparently they're both viable in American too. That is
I
so
hate
cool.
to be a stickler, but the OUGH is specifically the noun.
Ooh, okay. Well, there we go.
Actually, I'm going to be a stickler on you. Oxford also says it's the verb.
Well, Oxford also says I have to put commas where they don't need to go. So
first of all, Oxford commas, comma supremacy. Second of all,
I use Oxford commas. I'm just being a stickler.
Second of all, I have chosen the correct word. to tear apart writer's block.
There you go. Yeah,
As you
you did
two
it. You
argue
did it.
over.
Congratulations. Round of applause.
I've done it.
Round of applause.
My-
The plow
plan
heresy,
has
everybody.
been
The
enacted.
plow heresy. The next time you see
plow-
me and Red, we're gonna be killing each other with chainsaws.
Yeah, that's the next episode. Choose your weapon.
Oh God, that's such a good one. That really is. I love that, and it works with Worm. I love this. I love this. Oh, you had a whole theme going with your words. there.
On accident, yes.
Avani has said, spurious neophytes gnawing at the bindings of their liar's palace, soaring like birds above the propitious protagonist of our tale. That's so good. You are now
Right.
John Ryder's block. I'm so happy to see it. That's so I love it. You're not the first person that I've seen do that during a show, and I absolutely love that. So please keep it up. I love stuff like that.
It's so good. It's so good.
Thank you for participating in the stream. Like, first of all, like that's awesome.
Yes,
But
we love that.
yeah.
Final word. I've got 3 bangers here that I've been sitting on, and I want to make sure I use the right one here. Oh man, I'm not going to use my die because there's a pattern that's emerging, and I want to feed it. The word we will be using today is terrain. Terrain.
Well, there we go.
Terrain.
Correct. Round of applause. Ooh, yeah, spelling bee. That's what we should do. We should do a mini game of Writer's Block and see if people...
Writers B. It's Writers B.
B. Nathan, you did tear the show apart. Now we're fracturing up into like different shows.
Oh my God, we're gonna have like 8 tiny shows.
And I will never be blamed for it, but people will always remember that it was on my episode. So it's still free publicity for me. So
just on Wikipedia, the one thing about Writer's Block that's searched. So what happened to Nathan?
Prosper took their energy, absorbed it, and is now more powerful than ever.
I can imagine the
terrain is an
headline.
interesting.
Sorry, go on. I was just gonna say. I was gonna
No,
say.
go ahead.
something right.
Finish your joke. Finish your joke. It's YouTube. We gotta hear it.
I just like drama. Nathan drops a reckless attack upon Writer's Block.
No,
leaving
again,
them in shambles.
I'm
Damn
not
it.
doing anything.
Yeah.
I'm giving words.
No, the
I'm
advertisement speaks for itself.
participating with a full heart and an optimism, and it's you guys who are tearing yourselves apart. I just happen to be here.
I was gonna say, have you ever watched? You must have watched at some point Mystery Men, because right now you're giving me very Shoveler vibes, where it's just like,
Not on purpose.
I didn't do anything. I was all the way over here while there's a smoking corpse in the middle of the room. Great movie, by the way. Love it.
Mhm.
All right. So terrain's interesting for me. So
Warhammer.
I'm not gonna get political, but I am doing a lot of community organizing stuff right now, and so the term terrain isn't just used to refer to the actual land. Like the actual definition by Oxford is like a stretch of land, especially with regard to its physical features. But it's more than that. When we do our organizing, we have these things which we call terrain mapping, or like studying our terrain. And in that instance, we're talking about people.
Mhm.
We're talking about the socio-economic climate. We're talking about everything. So terrain is just something you have to navigate. And so it's not just the land beneath you. It can be the circumstances that's in front of you. So I'm taking sort of that read to it. We could absolutely just use it for like, what the dirt under our feet. Right. Or we could use it also as the climate, the environment, the socioeconomic structure.
Very cool.
I'll leave it there. Red, I have dropped that upon you. What do you have?
Why did I set this up to where I'd be the person giving the last word?
I was wondering.
I had that realization like halfway through, and I'm like, damn. Oh man, I had this old tradition where I go with the Merriam-Webster word of the day, but that's boring, and the word of the day is askew, and that's boring. So I'm gonna go with bespoke.
Oh, okay.
We love ourselves a little bespoke.
I love the word bespoke. Blech, I can't even say it. I love it so much I can't say it. So how do I say? The Merriam-Webster definition of bespoke, I don't like. Let me find a better definition. Made for a particular customer or user. So it's very unique. It's yeah, it's just unique to a specific person. So like the idea thereof is I didn't realize there was a verb version.
Bespeak? Yeah,
Bespeak.
no, that bugs the hell out of me weirdly.
Oh, okay.
Don't like that.
Yeah.
The archaic version of bespeak is to speak to. Come here, son, let me bespeak upon you.
That's interesting. That's so weird. I love that.
Let me have palaver with you.
This is basically, yeah, this is like the old English, this is just an old English equivalent of a word we used frequently, which is custom. Like, you know, custom made, custom ordered. Like, bespoke is just saying custom made or custom ordered. But it sounds so much nicer.
It sounds very, has like a weird modern edge to it, despite the origins of the word. Because it's just like, people are like, oh yeah, I like your outfit. It's very bespoke. And I don't think they know what the definition is. Because I'm going to be honest, I didn't know what the exact definition is. I figured it was just something that you say to people when you're like, damn, I really like your outfit or your vehicle or like something that you have, something materialistic. Which I was in the right frame of mind, but I just didn't have like the hard definition. I always thought of bespoke was like unique. You know, speaks for itself.
No, that was one of those words I've known about for a while because, like, bespoke suits are a thing where it's like it's a suit made for you, which is basically just a way of saying custom tailored suit. So I knew that. I think you're right. I think it's one of those words sort of just entered the modern zeitgeist. It's in that same area of like recapturing the past. It's why we have speakeasies again, even though like you can drink in all 50 states of the union. You don't need to be secretive about it, but there's something that makes it feel a lot more... Yeah.
They're called bespeakeasies now.
Such a good one, Red. I love that.
Thank you.
I think a bespeakeasy is just like whatever your home bar is, right?
yeah, absolutely.
It's your mini fridge with like the Bud Light in it. Like that's a bespeakeasy.
I chose this Bud Light for me to drink.
Yeah, this Bud's for you.
And I'm not telling anyone about it. Only I have the password.
This Budweiser is bespoken for you.
I just Reckless Attack has frogs and camaraderie. Are you like a really old Anheuser-Busch advertisement?
You know, we haven't. I think we've been. People have referenced it towards us, but we have never fully embraced that aspect of the frog advertising possibility.
Like the Budweiser?
Probably to our detriment. You know, I think we'd probably be one of the big names by now if we'd done it earlier, but, you know, there's still time.
Yeah. Hey, you know, everyone's got to make money, right? Get that sweet Budweiser money we all know it's flowing in.
That sweet 2003 Budweiser money?
Yeah, I don't know how that, you know, maybe. That's a whole conversation. Yeah.
Speaking of getting that money, this episode is brought to you by Rage. No, never. I'm never going to advertise something I don't like.
No.
But
I agree.
I say we get into the world building since we've been talking. I'm the one that keeps derailing everything, so that's on me. But
oh, Avani, I'm so jealous. That means he's got Avani. That means I've got a bespeakeasy since I got to custom mix my own liquors and brew my own mead. God, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Oh, it's right up there with being like an actual like forge tending smith. That's so cool.
Dylan said watching this turn into English etymology is deeply amusing. Yeah, so we go from talking about like absolutely stupid things, and then we will lock in and just go like Merriam-Webster. It's like it's Oxford comma.
Merriam-Webster.
M dash, of course. It's like fucking stupid.
Oh my god.
Nathan, do you have any trains of thoughts based off of this word? Did you want to like break it down to like a handful of words like we used to?
So I sort of do. I don't know that I love it though, in that it feels a little obvious, but I'm going to say it so it gets out of my brain, and we can iterate accordingly. So plow, makes me think of farming, makes me think of, yada yadas. Neophyte, kind of very potentially, my brain thinks of like a religion, right? I mean, I think that's how it's mostly used, which again makes it the more boring option. Kind of, and then in that light, things like sucker have a certain context. Things like the P word that I've also forgotten how to pronounce. Propitious, right? Yeah, that's what we decided.
Yeah.
As does like bind and worm and gnaw. And for me, like what it jumps out as is like a religion of some sort that does regular not sacrifices, rituals, we'll say, to ensure a good harvest kind of deal. Which again is it feels a little basic, but that's at least the first potential string through line that at least jumps out to me.
Okay, I kind of dig that.
Omni, you seem
Again, I'm not like sold on it. So please poke holes or add completely different zigs and zags.
This is the part of the show where we make fun of you for coming up with what you did, and then we just do our own thing for the rest of it.
Great. That's fine. So let's eliminate a couple of words. First, worm, bad word. Nah, no thanks. Plow, it's not doing it for me.
I'm not gonna lie.
We just animate a little like wheelbarrow coming over, picking up your camera, and just moving it off the screen.
There have been episodes of like the older writers block where we've had 2 guests on where every single one of my words gets ignored, and there is like a pit in me where I'm just like.
You remember, you recite each of those words to yourself before you go to sleep every night since.
Yeah.
If we're gonna do that, we clearly need to have ourselves like the lock system, like from competitive like Dota games. We're like, no, that word cannot be deleted. That we're putting our lock on that. I do like that actually. That is interesting. Your premise from the perspective of hereafter is a post-death setting, right? Like the whole idea of what we've been world building is that it's after death. That does not mean people are going to stop having belief systems. Like, especially if we're intentionally being specific about like this setting is mysterious and most people within it don't know how it works, and the ones that do probably aren't talking about it. So that really just means that after you die, you're just as clueless as you were before you died, which, man, that is a mild bit distressing to think about. So I love the idea of just like, yes, there's some weird cults out there, just figuring out how it works, and like, we throw ourselves sacrifices and call it a day. And like, that weirdly feels like something that could work in this setting. Like, you have the 2 big factions that actually sort of know what's going on. Then in the middle, you're like, yeah, I think if we throw this random person off this cliff 3 times a week, we're gonna have good weather. Let's go, boys! And
I would also light add-on or pivot of that if we're thinking religion, then or organization or something, I really like the idea of a worm or worms being a central figure in it. Like there is a worm god, or there is like, I know this order is specifically dedicated to taking care of thousands of worms that kind of are used as part of the ecosystem of whatever kind of town or city or blah blah blah.
I think that each worm is bespoke to each follower. No, so I really like the idea of King of Worms. I want to stick with that because that's very how do I put this? It's like weird, like medieval fantasy. Like a lot of the weirdness of like medieval fantasy has been sort of stripped from it in favor of like Tolkien-esque stuff. But like, could you imagine like Knights of the Worm? Like they literally just they're dirt knights. Like I absolutely love that idea. They worship the
phrase
worm
dirt
god.
knight is actually I'm kind of super into.
Okay, dirt knight. Write that down.
Oh God, we need to, I'm writing it down now. Absolutely, I'm just gonna put that down.
Stenographer?
Dirt knight.
especially like Dirt Knight as like a positive, you know, as like
Yeah.
an honorific, is
Yeah.
super super tasty.
They give succor to the earth by killing and
To the
feeding them to the
terrain.
worm god. Yeah.
I
the
need to get you both
Oh.
into Turnip 28. You both would dig that so much. Is what
is
I'm
our
getting out of this
homage.
conversation.
No, I love Turnip
I lo-
28. I've watched like what do they call those? Battle logs,
battle
reviews,
reports. Yeah,
reports. Yeah,
yeah, battle reports. Yeah.
fucking nerds.
Oh man. sorry, I'm sorry. I've got like 8 little armies, including a little Turnip
No,
28 army.
that level of like nerdy autism makes me envious. Like it's so good.
I have my right and proper order of cancerization in one of my many boxes back here. I just don't remember where it is right
Well,
now.
Nathan and I just made a group of knights that worship a worm god. So yeah,
I
take
love
that.
It also speaks to like, so there's this mythological like figure that's come in, and I don't know how recently it's been. I don't know how much of it's like modern pop culture like mysticism, or like it's an ancient thing. And it's probably an ancient thing that's slowly been absorbed by the modern zeitgeist. There's this concept of a rat king that I hear frequently,
Oh,
and like not
they're
just in the
alive.
Nutcracker, but like the idea of the lord or king of the downtrodden is kind of the idea.
Mm-hmm.
Like the one I'm familiar with is Destiny 2. The Rat King is literally this unspoken random person who's basically a vigilante. And whenever they die, someone else picks up their pistol and they become the Rat King.
Are you familiar
They're
with what a rat
attended to.
king is?
No.
A
Oh.
rat king is when a bunch of rats' tails get tied together and they die like that. It's disgusting.
Yeah,
They're
the
horrific.
idea is that it is so many rats in a very small place that their tails tie together and or fuse together and become
Oh my
a
gosh.
super creature
Yeah, kind of.
that then
That
dies
is
shortly thereafter.
They kind of look
That
like
is
they look
horrifying,
vaguely
I
like a
love it.
crown.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's. Yeah,
Oh
that's-
god, that's disgusting and horrible. And I
Yeah.
didn't even know that was a term. But I guess. Oh yeah, there we
Yeah.
go. Yeah, phenomenon or urban legend. They're not really sure
Right.
whether it's real or not.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I was gonna say I don't know that it actually exists or not, but it's no good.
Yeah,
oh no,
it's-
yeah, that's disgusting.
So, we
But
need
that
to talk
actually-
about the Worm King, then, of course. King of Worms. King of Worms is a
mean-
great title.
It
Um,
really is.
Mm-hmm. And it's Dirt Knights. Like, I'm not gonna lie, we could massage that and be onto something. I think.
It feels
I-
like there has to be an intrinsic tie to death, right? Like obviously.
Well, yeah,
Like-
and that's where bind comes in too, as a word.
Well, And again, I wouldn't say it even needs to be death. Like, I especially if it's like a post-death, kind of world. I think it was maybe No Man who was talking about this in the last like week or something about that. But like the word rot is very interesting in this regard. Where it's like it's not so much death. Obviously, that death is a part of it, but maybe it's more about decomposition, about rot, about renewal, about whatever. Or again, depends on how benevolent we want this group to be. I'd imagine if it is literally a worm, like worms are at best neutral, right? And
Yeah.
a value add to the ecosystem, obviously.
Your relationship with Worm is neutral.
Right? Yeah, basically.
Don't
But,
anger the
you know,
worms.
Definitely don't. But yeah, instead of death, if it depends, I guess, on how much even like spoilage happens in this world, right? Is it like, do trees still die? Do vegetables rot? Do fields get messed up or whatever? Or is it just humanoids that don't die or whatever? But there could be some interesting. It's an interesting place to be in that sort of a world, I think.
Agreed.
Yeah, because the existence of worms sort of brings on the idea of like carrion creatures, and it's like, yeah, are things dying in this world? And it made me think. Have you guys ever watched Adventure Time?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So, do you know how there's several? There's like I don't know how many. I think it's just like an unlimited number of death worlds.
hmm
And each time you die in a death world, you go to a different one or a deeper one. And depending on how you're doing, like you can ascend to like higher level death worlds. I think not exactly the same thing, but I do think that this is an iteration of like a death realm. So the sense of, yeah, it's supposed to resemble what life was. And who's to say that this isn't just another form of living? So I do think Death and Decay does have a place here, because we did talk about how the souls can't necessarily die, but they sort of wither and weaken. But who's to say that the worms here don't? Maybe they don't feed off of
Soul worms.
Exactly. I'm glad you're picking up what I'm laying down. But yeah, they could eat like fruit and stuff like that that sort of rotted into the ground, but they could also consume memories and souls. And I think that's what makes the Knights of the Worm kind of intimidating, is because they're all about like the recycling process of memories and souls.
To tie in a word, I think each soul who is there has their own bespoke worm that is for them. Where it is like you run into a worm knight or whatever, a dirt knight, excuse me, and
that's a good one.
They might have your worm, you know, and either you're actively trying to avoid them, or you are trying to seek out the one that has yours, or whatever. Could be a little fun. Another fun way to at least bring in the very specific word of bespoke, or they speak to you. In the old English version,
the worms
let me bespeak you.
Would you like to hear about my worm?
Have you heard of
this adorable little 3-piece tuxedo?
Okay, we are imagining like tiny worms. Are these things like? Are they earthworms sized, or like are they big?
It depends.
I was going to say, I like the idea that the more they eat, the bigger they get.
It's the Alaskan bull.
Yes. Like, okay. So I'm just going to put this out there, right? I'm going to put this out there. The idea of sandworms sounds kind of dumb until it becomes fucking Ford Stories time. That's why Dune does what they do. Like, they start with like they're little babies. They're the size of like a rock snake. And then it's literally larger than your infrastructure. Like, I like the idea, if these things feed on memories or feed on, like, they have targets, that they can just grow. People don't die. How big does an animal grow when it doesn't have to worry about, like, dying from, bodily functions failing because of this economy of scale? Because this is post-death, so I'm presuming that's not there. And it has a theoretically infinite food source. Carrion, but its meat never ends. Like, how thick and big does this thing get? Which gives us that also would explain why it becomes a religion and it's not just a pet.
What if?
Right, it's not just the supernatural Tamagotchi.
Okay, so you just put an image in my head, and I can tie in another word to this. Neophytes of the Order of the Worm. They start with a really tiny, like, little earthworm, but these things can get like exponentially large. And the larger your worm, this is so homoerotic, by the way I'm describing this. The larger your worm is, like, the more like venerable of a knight you are of the order.
The Freudian knights.
The Freudian knights, yes. So I'm just thinking that.
No, I'm kind of super into that.
Yeah, it's just
where like you are charged with a worm or set of worms or whatever.
A bespoke
that's
worm.
Your deal. A bespoke worm for you.
So there were these they're not witches, but they were like nurse women in like medieval Anglo-Sax era, that they did all sorts of weird things that led to the legends of witches and stuff like that. They would do like they would like boil rats and like frogs and stuff like that. And one of the things that they did is, if you had a throat cold, they might prescribe you to wear a necklace of writhing worms. And when they die and wither up and die, your sore throat would go away. That's what this was making me think of. So worm medicine. So
Yeah,
how do worms
very
affect the neophyte? Like how do they give succor to the sucker? Excuse me. Fucking Omni keeps mispronouncing it and it's making me mispronounce it.
I intentionally mispronounced it for educational purposes. This is all you now, buddy.
Oh no! Oh my god!
It makes me, and this is insect grossness content warning. So everyone mute for a second. But it just makes me think of like leeches and bleeding, or like how you can use like fly larvae to eat away necrotic tissue in a wound, kind of deal, which again, it's not 1-to-1. It's not quite what just an earthworm does, but also it's a fantasy earthworm, so who gives a shit? But I mean, I really like the idea to a degree, especially if it's this sort of an organization that it is like, no, we have the worm do worm things. It's not necessarily like they're not killing their bespoke worm.
Right.
They're not like putting their bespoke worm in danger or whatever, but like it does worm stuff, whatever that is. So no, I'm pretty into that idea.
Okay, so I had this idea.
Okay.
I want to keep iterating on this because like we're cooking here. So let's
We
add
are.
some seasoning. I'm thinking that these worm knights, they don't just have like the symbology of worms. They actually like they're farmers. So like that's where we tie plow in. They are like wandering farmers that like very common thing in medieval society is to change your farming implements into weapons. So what if their whole like deal with if they have any like general weapons, they use farming equipment,
For sure.
or farming equipment adjacent. So like they have like scythes and stuff like that, but they give succor to the people that they protect or oversee by helping them with their farms. Yeah, they straight up help. Yeah.
Just like they show up, like, could you imagine, like, literally just like someone walks up to your farm and they're like, hey, I have a pouch full of magic worms that will make your fields grow like triple the size or whatever, right? Like, pretty cool, pretty good. So no, I'm very, very into that. I think that's a great idea. I also wonder, I was thinking more about like the medicine bit. Is like, what if they are like, I'm imagining almost like, I don't remember if you have like, do you have like a worm farm? Is that a thing? Does that exist?
Yes, worm farms are a real thing.
Yeah, they're for
but it's like, what if they like are running or like walking around with like miniature compost things, where it's like they are curating this little like compost heap, and literally they make some sort of medicine or healing thing out of that, where it's just like, oh yeah, it takes about 3 weeks, and I make sure that there's an apple core and some used tissues and whatever, and then these 3 worms eat through that, and then at the end it cures your allergies or whatever. And it's like, it could just be literally like, eat this dirt, you need to eat this dirt that I have created with these worms, but it'll cure you.
So I have an idea, actually. I'm really liking this. So we've talked about how in this setting, when people die, or when they die, when they're hurt, severely hurt, basically people are kind of almost like they're almost kind of like vessels, in the sense that like when you die, you're not really dying. All of your personality, all of your memories bleed out, basically, and you just become this husk of a person that slowly reanimates as memories flow back into you like water going downhill. Like naturally it'll happen, but it's a very slow rebirth cycle, closer to like the Tarnished, or the, I can't remember what they're called, the Unkindled or whatever from Elden, from oh god, I'm forgetting the name of the
Soulsborne games.
Soulsborne, there we go. Dark Souls, that's what I was looking for. I was going to say every single one but Dark Souls. And so what if the idea is that the worm feeds off of your injuries? It's a way to recapture what you lose, and that's why these knights give these worms. So basically, normally when a person is wounded or injured in this setting, they just sort of bleed memory like blood, and they lose it. What if the worm feeds on that, and it gives you a direct benefit? So you're still hurt, but it feeds on it, and it is tied to you. And so the more your worm is fed by your injuries, by your fighting, by what's happened to you, it makes you more resilient. And that's why they go around giving these worms out. That's how they initiate people into this order. And
it could even be like almost a I love that in like a they are like the worms almost are eating your pain in a way, you know, where it's like they're, you know, it's like a spare battery almost, where these worms, instead of, again, your memories or whatever just kind of going out into the world or into the ether for them to wander back, whatever, that if you have these sorts of things around and know how to use them and care for them or whatever, that it goes straight to the worm, so to speak. and so your recovery time is a little bit better for those sorts of things. That's very interesting.
I like the idea of people of this order, or people that like believe in it, or even just the faith. They call it feeding the worm whenever they're like on the mend. Like, oh, he must feed the worm before we continue. But I also like the idea that we keep talking about, like having a bunch of worms on you at once. What if like not neophytes, but maybe like more a higher ranking wormlings, they carry around, I'm using a lot of like religious anecdotes, but what if they carry around like a giant terrarium, and like they just have they just like reach in there every now and then and like pull out worms, and they like bless your field by like throwing worm.
Right. I love that. I actually love that.
And maybe part of you rising in the ranks isn't necessarily collecting them, but it is, which maybe is true. I don't know how widespread we want to make them. It could go either way, but like you are collecting and breeding and curating your own bespoke collection of worms, to bring it back around. But oh god, I dropped my mic. But
good save.
That is a part of it, is like, you know, when you're just starting out, you have, you know, a handful, just a couple, but the longer you do it, the more knowledgeable you are, the better you are at taking care of them and feeding them and all that kind of stuff, the more you have to give away, and, you know, the kind of more you're able to just like have. I guess that kind of runs into a little bit of worry that someone at the top might hoard their worms, and so as not to lose status or whatever, right? But like, it's that's kind of an interesting world building problem to solve or acknowledge. But yeah, I think that's cool.
I really just like the idea of something that's so insignificant to a majority of people becoming a thing of worship, and people are like, oh, you know, they worship like a worm god. Also, since we haven't really found a place to use the word gnaw, I elect that maybe just in the phonetic sense we use the word gnaw for the name of the worm god. It doesn't have to be spelled GNAW, but I really like gnaw, the great recycler, you know, or
recycler. I don't hate that.
I love it, actually. I propose we move that Gnaw become one of the major deific figures in Primal Simplicity. We were looking for these big leaders, like characters, to exist within this setting. This feels like the first one. This feels like the first one of those major, like, okay, here's an example of that.
I also like the idea that a lot of people aren't 100% sure if Gnaw exists. So thus creating the sort of schism of the faith and the faithless, and at least in the area that these guys are at. But I like the idea that Gnaw is so like incredibly massive by this point that Gnaw just kind of looks like one of the towers from the prior episodes. Like he's so just boundlessly huge that it's almost non-Euclidean, but like all the little like scions of Gnaw are just like, they start out as these little babies.
Scions of Gnaw, come on!
I love that. That's
sick. That's sick. What if it just Gnaw exists only underground? That there are rumors of some weird cavern somewhere, right? Where this huge earthworm lives, allegedly, and where they get all of these special worms from, and where only the high-ranking Dirt Knights get to enter and that sort of thing. But like no one gets to see it and no one knows where it is or where the entrance is or whatever. It's just kind of like maybe it's hearsay, maybe it's real, whatever. But like that being part of why everyone's like, this is a weird fantasy place, and maybe we do see gods or leaders of this sort of stature around. And it is A, weird that it's a worm, and B, it's weird that we don't see it anywhere. But clearly something's happening, so I don't know. I think that's cool.
Red, I'm about to make you very fucking happy because I'm about to make a Stephen King reference.
Oh, here we go.
What if Gnaw is like the Langoliers? So we know that the idea is that the towers stretch on endlessly in this setting, because we all live in a tower, basically. In this setting, people are born into these towers, they fight along these towers, and there's a corruption, a slow, like, return to simplicity creeping up the towers, like vines or corrosion.
Sure.
What if the myth is that at the very bottom of the tower, far out of our sight, beyond the edge of the primal simplicity creep, there is Gnaw, eating the tower behind it, which is why they're forever building upward. That doesn't necessarily be true, but maybe that's part of the myth.
I think I think it's cool that that's a part of it one way or the other, because, or like a version of it, because, worms eat, right? Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, worms eat, period. And so that not having a worm whose main feature is eating things and recycling things, I think is would be a mistake. But I think the idea that, for better or worse, hopefully for better ultimately, it takes everything and turns it into something. And hopefully it's all good. Hopefully it's not, hopefully it's not like entire planets or solar systems or whatever. But even if it was, then cool. Then it maybe spits out new planets at that point and life starts anew. And is that the worst thing? Maybe not.
I don't remember if it was you or Omni that said worms are neutral, but like that's what that kind of feels like to me, is that they're like,
it was Nathan. I have to give that to Nathan. It was a good quote.
I, like many people, I enjoy the symbolism of Catholicism, not the execution of it. So death before the invention of hell, yes, hell was invented. Before that was sort of brought around into Catholicism, death was seen as a neutral force. It wasn't seen as something like that could be potentially evil. Like all death was pretty much just.
That's a big thing in Discworld books. Very famously, the character death is is lovely and great. And this is my annual or like weekly plug for, hey everyone, go read Discworld and Terry Pratchett books. But yeah, it's very neutral, very almost benevolent, but it's just like, yep, this is just what happens. There's a lot of other good exampes, including comic book products whose author we will not speak of, and many other such things. But I kind of like the idea that even if the Dirt Knights are benevolent ultimately, right, are going around, are being a part of the community, are kind of using these tools positively, that Gnaw, the great recycler, is an animal intelligence to a degree, animal and or alien, and maybe that's an important distinction. Maybe it is functionally not a distinction at all. But Gnaw continues. Gnaw eats. Period.
Gnaw who eats. Gnaw.
And that's it. And maybe the high level Dirt Knights, the popes of the Dirt Knight religion, what they do is help guide Gnaw's path in a hopefully positive or neutral way, or not, or whatever. But that the worm entity itself is almost its own thing, owes no loyalty, owes no, asks for no worship, etc. Just is, and is like a force of nature. It's
so good.
For folks that ever play World of Warcraft, this is very akin to a Loa, the sort of like wild god animal spirits. I know World of Warcraft's not the fucking first to do that, believe me. I mean, they literally have they have a city named Silvermoon, okay? Like, whenever I think of stuff like this, my brain goes towards trying to make it more approachable and maybe even relatable, to the sense of people are like, oh, I can get behind this. I like coming up with phrases that people would use, like, oh, "Nah must eat." It's a phrase that means it is what it is.
Mhm.
Like if something really bad happens, somebody dies,
Ooh.
something terrific happens, just say "Nah must eat," and like I like the idea that "Nah must eat" is like a very simple phrase, but it's sort of been like squished into one word, so people just say "Nah must eat." And because that's how the
Namaste.
language works.
Namaste.
Yeah,
I love it.
it's very similar to namaste. But
Namaste.
yeah, like I like taking little phrases and little interesting bits, because I think that's what helps things make it helps make things feel more fleshed out and real, is if there's like vernacular that's specific to this group of people. I love Dirt Knights. I wanted to say that Avani in chat said the Great Consumption. This is a god we're talking about, essentially. Maybe maybe they don't revere Na as a god, more so as like a deity or a force. But
Again,
multiple
it's one of
titles.
those of like, what's the difference?
Yeah, there's
You
not
know?
a real difference here. That's splitting hairs to try to sort of drum up a difference. But I like the idea of different titles. So we have the Great Recycler. Avani pitched the Great Consumption, and I was like, I like that too.
Yeah, big time.
I also like the phonetic spelling that Avani.
Yeah, I
provided.
love the spelling. It's so good. There we go.
I'd be a warlock of Na. Hell yeah. Na is a
Yeah.
great old one, and Reckless Attack. That's a question for you, Nathan.
I did see. Again, the more I keep just throwing ideas out, I'm like, yeah, I have described many things in Reckless Attack roughly like this, and I have no regrets.
What? I'm trying to remember. I literally had this amazing thought, but I can't think of it anymore. That's the story of writing. That's why writers never get anything done. That's why the show is called
weird.
Writer's Block.
Yep. Oh, this is such a cool thing. You see, guys, this is why I love this show. We start with a couple of random words. By the time we're done, we got a worm god in order of worm knights. Like, this is awesome.
The beautiful thing, I sat down and I was like, I have some words, but I have absolutely no idea what direction this will go in, and I don't particularly care that I don't, because it makes the show so much more interesting when you show up with an empty mind and 3 words. Like, and we made an entire order of knights, and even like a pseudo religion. Like, it's almost like I'd say it's a very druidic. It's very reminiscent of like Celtic
order. Yeah, order. I think is almost a good. Again, almost a little bit more knightly and or druidic than religion in some ways. And I like the idea that it is a godlike figure, or again, maybe is a god, but the people that actually kind of revere it are more like a little more workmanlike to a degree.
The Knights of Nod.
Yeah. I like to imagine the Knights of Na are kind of hedge knights too. They're like knight errants. They sort of they're not formally trained by anyone, so to say, but they sort of wander all in the same service of the cycle.
Okay, is there a good phrase that we can call, like, what is the neophyte version of, like, do they do a worm internship, or are they just like, here's your you've gone to school for 6 months, here's your 6 worms, go out into the world?
An in-worm ship,
like,
if you will.
In-worm ship. I hate that so much. It's so good.
And again, I don't think that there's a wrong answer. It is interesting. Like, you bring up an interesting point of like how organized, official, or whatever is it?
I got
it's
it.
Just like, we got lots of worms. Take some. Do what you will with them.
I got it.
Warm up.
Each knight has a mandate. So there's this idea of like, this is just a basic thing. For most worms, if you split them in half, they can regenerate into 2 worms. It's like one of the most basic methods of reproduction that they have, is regeneration. So that's the idea. Each worm knight is tasked with at least finding 2. At least squiring 2 knights. And then anything over that is just overkill. It's just
I like that.
I think a lot of them are just farmers.
Mm-hmm.
that like believe in the faith, and they're like called upon to like defend it at some point or another against the order of the early bird.
No, no. Oh, I'm annoyed that works. I'm annoyed that works. Oh,
No,
I guess what I would say is that farmers of anyone would be the most equipped to handle an early bird. You know, like getting up at the crack of dawn, like. And I don't know what that says, but that's just is facts.
that's that's beautiful. Me and my stupid pun. I think we have like a fully like realized idea here. Like I think is
yeah.
I think we could just keep iterating for like 45 more minutes and be happy. But I think we have the thing is there.
Yeah, it's just the only word I wanted to call back to is bind. Is it more of a ties that bind thing? Like you are bound to the worms, or you are bound to Gnaw, or are you bound to the cycle itself, and not so much Gnaw? You're bound to the force, the philosophy.
You're bound to the worm. You're bound to the worm.
Worm
Wait.
bound.
I feel like maybe this was something that we talked about previously on one of the times that I was here, maybe.
Mhm.
So it just like it made me think of is like is this is a quarter baked thought of like a piece binding your weapon kind of thing. You know what I mean? Of like this order of farmers, right? Who are there to you can use their farm implements as weapons should they need to. But I don't know. I just like I wonder if there is something there, if that jostles something in anyone. Otherwise, you are bound to a worm, and that seems pretty good to me too.
I don't know why I thought of bind, and I was like, well, there's like bindings, so like wrapping things, and then it led me to think giving your worm like as they get bigger like articles of clothing. So you put like one of those little like
you have a
dog,
leash.
yeah, like a leash or like yeah, SpongeBob has like the
True.
The little bow
like,
tie.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, I just I do like bound to the worm, but you're also bound to the cycle and bound to the people that you're supposed to protect, which the people that you're supposed to protect predominantly seems to be farmers. So
You must do as worms do and till the soil, right? Like it's kind of
Namaste.
that's kind of your thing. Namaste eat.
Um,
Namaste eat.
my body is a temple. I must wormship.
I actually dig that. I like the idea. I like both these ideas. I think they should both be used. So like I really like the idea of like the piece binding a weapon, like the idea like you have to cultivate a following first before you can really do the worm binding thing. And then I like the idea that a worm is bound to you, and that's the term that they use, like the binding ritual or whatever. And that's the cycle of like the the worm joining to you, becoming a part of you spiritually, and that's where it begins to be fed with your memories as you're injured. And I feel like that's the trade-off, right? Like we need to have it where it's not just like. I think the trade-off is with other people when they're injured and their memories leave them. There's a theoretical chance they can earn them back. The worm must eat. If you bind yourself to the worm, you gain benefit, surely. But whatever it eats, it eats. It's not yours anymore. It's the worm's.
It's like I wonder if there's, and again, this is like a whole side thing that
Yes.
I don't know if we have time for, but like
No, go on.
one of the that really unfortunately in a good way in that it reminds me of this media thing that exists.
That's fine.
But there's a webcomic called Kill 6 Billion Demons. It's one of my favorite things in the world. And for those of you who don't know, there is a godlike character called Gog Agog, which is essentially a sentient, omni-universal pile of worms that shares one single consciousness and is just kind of one huge biomass that shares a consciousness. And it reminds me a little of that, kind of what you were saying, is like if it preserves your memories, right, by you having this connection to your worms, and preserving them and they feed, kind of feeding off of it, and so maybe you have your memories accessible. You are able to kind of persist, but eventually, even that has a price, and you become more worm than man. And again, maybe that's a good thing. Maybe that is the final step of your journey. Maybe then that is when you are part of the great recycling. Or maybe it's horrific. Whatever the vibe is. But like, yeah, I like that idea where it's like it's not really it's not even a cost. That is the cycle. Is that when you start doing this, the more you do it, the more the path narrows before you. But the people who understand it, who get why it's important, especially in a world where there is no death, that could be pretty appealing, and not even in like a sad, self-destructive way, but in a like, I get to move on. I get to rest. I get to be a part of this world in a different, new, positive way. Is all very interesting.
I like the idea. Yeah, I realized we didn't really use the word propitious, so it's implied. But I was gonna say, to end up as a part of the cycle is something that's considered like a great victory, I'd imagine. Like, because it is very difficult to just outright die in this setting. Because as we've talked about, husks empty and stuff like that. But I like to think that Gnaw might be one of the few ways that like even a husk can be not necessarily, I don't want to say killed, but upcycled. Right. Like I like the idea that a husk can be turned into more worms.
It's like on your own terms, like
on your
again,
own worms.
not in a you want to be sure. Yeah. You want to be sure that it's not like, kind of like overly glorifying that sort of thing.
Right.
But I see a path there for sure to play around with.
I love this.
There isn't like a martyrdom sort of thing, but they are
right.
Fighters that like get greatly injured in battle, and the one thing that they need to preserve is the memory of Gnaw, like the worm itself, and to lose that is to lose your entire self. So when people realize that they are getting old and venerable in their souls, probably millennia or centuries, well, whatever we want to call it, time doesn't really have a meaning here. I think eventually they do just retire out of, like, they've gathered a lot of knowledge for Gnaw and to like better provide the cycle, so they feed themselves to it, and their souls and their memory goes into Gnaw, and thus be
it's the good
cycle.
Place.
Yeah, it's the good place. It's
an elephant graveyard, basically. It's the final the final stage of their life cycle.
And this is something you guys can decide on too. But again, maybe that is a service they offer too to other people. Is that obviously the Dirt Knights, that is an unalterable fact about them. Is that after a certain point, that's how your journey is going to end. Maybe it might take a long time. Maybe it'll take essentially infinity, but there's no version of you that does not end that way, and you welcome it, and it is nice. Maybe that's a service that they offer to other people too. That they are, again, almost a de facto force of death, of maybe compassionate death, of maybe whatever, of a way for people to end their journeys. And again, I mean this in terms of like, you'd have to do it right, because you don't want to like what's the 10 simple reasons or whatever, that one horrible like suicide glorifying show was. 13 Reasons Why, that's what it was. 10 simple rules for dating my teenage daughter. I think that's what I was talking about. But no, I think, again, you'd have to be careful with it and respectful with it. But that's kind of an interesting idea, like almost a workaround. When the alternative is potentially bleak for some people.
Yeah, I like the idea of the progress of your worm growing in size as you achieve things, and sort of like put them in farms. Like you have one, like a couple, maybe one specific worm that you like grow, and it's a scion of Na rather than just like an offspring or like a little guy of Na. I can't. I'm trying to think of a better word for that, but I can't right now because my brain's not working right. Great, but I like the idea that you sort of, maybe you don't die and get buried. You transfer all of your memories and soul to the worm because you've grown the vessel large enough to where it can contain all of that. So, and then that worm goes on its own journey to Na and gives back. It's not really a hive mind. It's just sort of a different take on a society, I guess.
Yeah. Well, and I think one of the cool things could potentially be, and again, it's one of those of like, you'd kind of see how it played out in whatever fiction world building thing, but like maybe that's the mystery, and again, not to just steal again from The Good Place, but like, you don't know what happens. Like, you don't know what Na does with this knowledge, or does it get spread around? You hope so. You hope that's part of it. And maybe priests say that, but it's an act of hope and faith and whatever to do that and to believe in that. And I think that's a cool area to not have an answer.
Yeah, I encountered that last night. I was doing some world building for a setting I'm working on for a group, and I was sort of thinking, yeah, I've kind of fallen back to the idea that sometimes questions left unanswered are significantly more interesting, narratively speaking, than just having an answer to everything. Having an answer to everything kind of gets tiring, and like settings like this, the whole point of writing, the whole point of art in general, is to let the viewer interpret. So they can have their own headcanons. Everybody can have their own headcanons. What I just pitched is a headcanon. It's like it's a whole, like, this thing is a soul vessel. It's like, maybe they aren't, maybe they're not at all. Who cares? It's what the individual person thinks. If you're playing a Dirt Knight, if you are watching a Dirt Knight, different Dirt Knights are gonna have different philosophies based on their flock and like the people that taught them. So yeah, no, I 100% agree. That's also Todd Kenrick, who made the Eberron setting. Like the major apocalyptic thing that happened at his setting, he has still never confirmed it, and he won't, because he's like, it's so much more interesting politically speaking in writing that nobody really knows why this giant apocalyptic event, the morning, happened. And yeah, again, it's about creativity. It's about letting people interpret stuff. So I agree with you 100%.
And it's a great cross section of faith. The idea, it's about the question. You won't have the answer. It's about the question. And I love that.
It's philosophical.
We made philosophical Dirt Knights that worship a worm, guys. I'm proud of us.
Nah, must eat.
Nah, must
Nah,
eat.
must eat.
Nah, must eat.
Nah, must eat. I'm just gonna be walking down the street shouting that. Everyone's like, "The hell are you doing?" Nah, must eat.
There's a guy. There's a guy down here. He's screaming. He keeps saying things about worms.
He says that he's a
throwing
Dirt
your
Knight,
worms
and
at everybody. I don't get it.
pretty fucked up.
The Dirt Knight. I am the dirtiest.
I got my
knight.
Halloween costume, guys. I got my Halloween costume.
Dirt Knight.
Oh god.
I like the idea that if they have helmets, they're shaped like like pots, like flower pots.
Very fun.
Yes. Also, as they get older, they're filled with worms like Oogie Boogie, but that's just my thought.
They have worms just crawling on them. That's fair. I think.
Guys, I think this is it. Yeah.
I think it is. Well, Nathan, it has been an absolute pleasure having you back on.
Always.
A reminder to everybody: Nathan's data is inside the doobly doo in the video description. Go click those links. Subscribe if you liked this podcast video thing we do. Please subscribe and like the channel. Thank you guys so much. Red. Go ahead.
Oh, thank you. I just wanted to shout out Nathan one more time. Nathan's been on the show 3 or 4 times now. And I was very happy when he was just like, "Hey, I'll be your first guest." And I'm like, "Oh, yeah."
Always.
Yes.
Yeah. The best.
So I just posted a link to his itch.io, and please go check out his game, Dream Investigator. It looks very, from what I was able to read before we started the stream, I was
It's David Lynch Mad Libs.
That's beautiful.
Is the easy 6-word pitch or whatever.
And that's a really great ad memoriam. Like I love that.
Yep. Yeah, it was part of a game jam specifically of like, give us your Lynch game ideas, and I said, aha, I have one.
That's awesome.
So it is very steeped in David Lynch stuff. There are lots of David Lynch quotes from him or his projects, a lot of weird art, a lot of good stuff. So if that's something you're into, it's a good game.
I will be sure to update the description with that. There we go. Okay, cool. That's a nice thing about YouTube. I can just update things on the fly. All right.
Isn't it nice?
Yeah, it's super nice. Well, thank you for joining us again, Nathan. Like I said, it's been a pleasure. And depending on how long this season runs for, I have a feeling we made such a good blank slate initially that this is probably going to run until we get bored of it. So
It's our new AS. We did it, Red. We made it.
we did. We found a new AS. This is going to run for 14 episodes, and we're going to have so many guests.
I'm down with it.
But yeah, like I said, please check out Nathan's links in the description of the video. Also, please check out my co-host Omni's links in the description. At least give them a follow. Subscribe if you can find them anywhere. You can find Reckless Attack wherever you find your podcasts, if I recall correctly.
Indeed.
I remember I was looking at Spotify the other day and I got recommended your podcast. I was like, that's cool. But
Reckless Attack is an awesome podcast, folks. Easily
you.
my favorite TTRPG podcast, hands down.
it's got frogs and friendship. What else do you need?
And not to overly sell it or take credit for today's discussion, Dirt Knights and a giant worm god, that's pretty up our alley. Like that feels like that would exist in our setting as well.
The crossover episode.
I'll DM you. Can I steal this, please? Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you helped make it. Of course, it's not stealing.
No, well, we'll negotiate the rights off air.
I'm thinking
Don't
upwards
call
of
me,
like
my lord will call you.
I'm thinking of like 50 G's. Like I think that's what we can settle on.
5 figures. 5 figures.
Yeah, 5 figures.
Yeah.
We'll get into the toy rights and kind of the animated special spin-off kind of minutia after the stream.
Fair.
All right, guys.
Take care, everybody, and keep writing.
See you next week. Same time.